Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about the human consciousness. What does that really make you think about? Well, luckily, this is the day that we are really going to think about this with Barbara, who's going to really help us think about this in a whole new way. So, thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing your time and your perspective with me. I am excited. So let's just dive in. When you hear these words, human consciousness, what does that make you think about?
Well, human consciousness is the root of everything that we are as an individual.
Mm,
It
mhm.
springs forth from that mysterious place that, you know, poets and scientists have all been mystified by. And
Yeah.
it's our very essence of being alive, of being conscious.
Yes, I love that. I love because people do not realize it's what we are. It's what made us who we are as as an individual, as human beings. And you're right, science has been trying to discover the roots of our minds and all that makes us operate in the manner that we do. So I have to ask you, what made you dive into this? What made you try to figure this out for yourself?
I had a long road that was leading somewhere before I even knew it. So I started out in music
Mm,
and I started writing music when I was very young, 12, 13 years old. And it was the expression of a kind of a lifetime of home trauma, deep trauma, and the need to have a voice.
yeah.
But I started writing these beautiful songs. And by the time I was out of high school, I was on the road in music. And that was my
Mm,
big dream. I wanted to be a big rock star. And I did it 20 years. I did everything that I could have. I won awards in Minneapolis was where I was from. And it was all going very well. And then I got this, I guess it's like a automatic writing where your hands sort of get taken over. You
mm,
start typing something different than you think you're going to do.
mm-hmm,
And I knew what psychic stuff was. I had
mm-hmm.
been exposed to it in high school and Edgar Casey, but when I started to do it, that that was really curious. And so I followed it and
Mm-hmm.
trusted it and started to listen to this voice that came out of me. And while I was going this way to be a rock star, which had really nothing to do with consciousness, really,
Yeah.
this way started to open to be this intuitive artist who became, I guess they sort of trained me to be able to communicate with those who had passed on and articulate it. And so I've done that. I've written a lot of books, nonfiction books about that journey. But that journey started to turn me into really, wait, what is the nature of our consciousness? Because what was coming out of me as a channel, as a psychic, was pointing us right into the middle of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a lot of the times people don't realize that when you're spiritually in tuned, then you realize that our conscience is really working with us. You know what I mean? Like our mind in every aspects, even in the subconscious levels that we don't even think about or even consider or even poke a bear at. You know what I mean? We don't even acknowledge at all. Like those areas are still communicating with other parts of ourselves. And it's still relaying the message, relaying the pain, relaying the healing, relaying the suffering, relaying the beauty. You know what I mean? Everything that comes with life, it really does relay and brings to the surface. And I think that's what's scary for people. You know what I mean? Is that scare that fear factor of what am I hiding? You know what I mean? What or why is it hidden and should it stay hidden? You know what I mean? So it's like, what would you tell somebody who is afraid of this unknown of their consciousness?
Well, first, I would say I completely understand because when somebody first said to me, well, go within, it's like, well, what does that mean? Where,
Yeah.
where, where is within? What am I looking for? What am I supposed to be doing? What aren't I doing? I don't really understand what this means. But what I would say is that it's our journey inward that's going to empower us to know the answer to what that question is. So
Yeah.
people underestimate how powerful it is to just stop and go, okay, I am consciousness. And now I have to understand what that means, even though no one taught us in this culture. No one taught us how to feel feelings.
Yeah. Nobody did. And
No
it's
one showed us intuitive guidance.
mm-mm. And that's the thing, like it's all a learning process. But I think when you give yourself that time to just sit with yourself in silence, oh, people do not realize how silence is healing. Like pure silence. Like no noise, just you could just the regular noise of the house, the regular noise of the world, the regular noise of nature. Just that silence is just being in tune is when you can hear what's going on inside of you. You know what I mean? You can listen to that voice that's trying to get your attention, but you never even realize it was trying to get your attention. You know what I mean? You
Yes.
can listen to the spirits that are around you and maybe trying to remind you of something or, you know what I mean, guide you in another direction or to tell you to do something in a different way than what you're doing it because you don't know the harm that it's causing. You know what I mean? Like there's so
Yes.
many different avenues, but the way to really step into that inner self is really have that moment with yourself. You know what I mean? So it's like, what is your best practice to really connect with your conscious mind?
That is simplified. And we pair it, I would say, with what we call feel and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is the emotion, and we take these as we call them the three human dimensions in
Mm-hmm.
our work: emotion in your solar plexus, intuition in your heart, and intellect in your head. And when we take what you just said, where you just take, people don't understand, just take a second. It doesn't
Yeah.
even have to be like, I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. It can be one time I was in the airport having a meltdown and I caught myself because that's part of the work we do is
Mm-hmm.
we catch ourselves. What are we doing? And I took, I don't know, maybe it was 2 minutes where I stepped into the shadows, started just feeling and breathing without directing it at somebody or blaming myself for it in my head and just wanting to get to the good of the whole and what would that be? And
Yeah.
inevitably, the next step is always what you're listening for.
Mm.
Intuition is going to tell you it works on one step at a time basis.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like in the airport, I just melted down and I went to feel and breathe. And it's like, what is the next most advantageous step? And I heard, go apologize.
Mm.
So I went back to the counter where I had my little hissy fit. And I said, I am so sorry. That just was so inappropriate. I just
Mm.
need to get my bag. And they weren't giving me my bag as long as I was melting down.
Yeah.
But as soon as I softened, let go of actually breathe the emotion out of me, not
Mm-hmm.
stamping it down,
Yeah.
and then listening to what the
Yeah.
voice of God is going to tell me, and then doing it. And then they just handed me my bag.
Yeah.
So we can affect the change in how things dance and manifest around us.
Yes, we do. I mean, we can. I've had those moments as well where I had to just give myself that second of grace. You know what I mean? Because we don't realize like we need to give ourselves that grace to deal with the world sometimes. And we don't do that. You know what I mean? It's and like you said, it's not taught. It's not something it's taught at school and sometimes it's not even taught at home, you know? And if you are blessed to have an individual in your home who teaches you this, well, then you are truly blessed because this is something that we really do have to just learn along the way when we realize like something's going on within me. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to handle it, but I do know that something needs to change. And I think the example that you gave us was so real because it's like, how many times can we reflect back and think about when we got so in our emotions and so overwhelmed and so filled with anger or just, oh, there's just this frustration and not know what to do with it. But then when we gave ourselves that moment to just breathe, rationalize, or just consider the situation in a bigger perspective, then you realize like, you know what? I didn't have to act like that. I didn't have to perceive it like this. I am not the victim. They are not out to get me. The world is not out to get me. You know what I mean? And having listening to that intuitive voice, like you said, is truly powerful because when you connect with your intuitive voice, the more it gets louder. You know what I mean? It's not so silent anymore. It gets louder so you can hear it, so you can understand it. Like just the other day, I was dealing with something and I got a proposal in the email, and something was like, this doesn't feel right. And then my spirit was like, don't do it. And I was just like, "Psh, say less." You know what I mean? Say less.
Exactly.
So we really do have to listen to our spirit because only our spirit really knows what's going on in the grander scheme of things. So it's like where do you feel like you are still developing this strength?
I have gotten to a point, I just turned 70 this year. So
Mm,
I've been doing this work for decades and decades. So I have to say that I'm pretty good at it. But then I think if people did it as much as I did, you'd be great at it too.
mm-hmm.
But I think my biggest challenge still, because it's every day, it's an operating system.
Mhm.
It's like we're reprogramming, we're not getting rid of all conflict and we're just going to sit in the cloud.
Yeah.
We're reprogramming how we deal with conflict in a regenerative way and
Mhm.
use it to our advantage so that when we get triggered and get into those inappropriate decision makings that our head is, that we have the witness of ourselves to stop
Mm.
us and say, wait a minute, step back. And then the other thing I want to add to what you said is that the more that we allow our emotion to flow through us in those moments where we're standing in the shadows, like all frustrated, but still just going, no, 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 just feel and breathe them. They feed intuition,
Mhm.
information. So when we stuff them down, intuition doesn't get the full content of what's really going on around us to be able to be fed by it. So the more we feel, the more intuition does.
Mhm.
And mine is still, I think it's the hardest thing about the whole process is how do we get our ego to shut
Mhm.
up and surrender to what intuition is going to say? Because like you say, when you go into the listening process where you get into a space that's just silence and you listen and then you start to hear those things. So how to get into in intellect out of the way. And two, this is my big question. How do you inspire yourself to want to do this?
Yeah.
Because that's what it gets down to. You can take more classes, you can go see more gurus, you can go do all that, but ultimately it's all going to get down to how are you going to master yourself? And are you going to? Because there are people who either don't want to or aren't there yet. And I don't know why, I don't care, got no judgment. But if they're not willing to be responsible from themselves, for me personally, I just put them on a farther circle. They don't get into my inner circle because
Mhm.
that's a very sacred place that I need to have this mutual cooperation. But I can put them out there and say no to them when I need to and love them and not blame them like, well, they're just such a terrible person. I have to push them out. No, no, no.
Yeah.
And so it's the intellect that always, always, always trips me up.
No, I like how you said that, and I don't think people realize like you just have to be able to read people like you read yourself. And I think once you read yourself, you're able to read people to determine if they are worthy to be in your inner circle. Do they have the intellect to understand what you are trying to convey? Because that's the thing, and that's what I realize is like, why am I going to waste my words, waste my energy, waste my time with people who don't understand on my level? And if I have to constantly lower myself to have them understand me, then I'm just pulling myself. I guess to simple it is simplify is like I can't match energies. You know what I mean? The
Yes,
concept of matching energies is never going to be a thing for me because if I have to match your energy, then you're either going to pull me or drag me down. And I can't do that. You know what I mean? Because I know where my place is. I know where I stand. I know how to manage myself where I'm at because if I'm getting pulled, oh, I'm going to feel so many more emotions that's going to make me realize this is not for me. And if I pull myself down, it's going to put me back into a state of mind that makes me realize that that's no longer who I am anymore. You know what I mean? And I think that concept of matching energies is really selfish because you are telling people that you need to be where I'm at or we can never be friends. And I feel like that's not always the case because you can be friends with people who aren't at your level, but it doesn't mean that you have to dismiss them completely. You know what I mean? You can still have fun, bring joy, have life together, but you just know there's a certain end point. You know what I mean? You stop at a certain level in the building. You know what I mean? The elevator doesn't go all the way up with you two. You know what I mean? There's certain stops that they're gonna have to get off on, or just like think of it like a train. You're on the train together, you're going someplace, and then your friend comes on, and then you're like, oh, so happy, blah blah blah, and then they get off and then you continue on. Like that's how it kind of is when it comes to life and with people. Like you said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that when they're ready to learn, when they're ready to take that accountability, when they're ready to look within themselves and start changing the way they think, changing the way they speak, changing the way they perceive life along with themselves, then you can start moving in a different manner with them. And I think there's nothing wrong with that because you have to also protect yourself. It's like respecting yourself. You know what I mean? It's like a
exactly.
home. You're not going to invite everybody into your home. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. So you only invite the right people who you know are safe, who are know are going to protect you, who are not going to come into your house scouting for what they can rob from you. You know what I mean? You're going to bring people in your home who's going to feel that peace, feel that love, and know that that's what it is, and not manipulate it into something else because their state of mind is still in a healing process or their still state of mind is still corrupted in a way. And I loved how you said that some people are just not willing to take that responsibility for that life, for their life. So I'm curious when you said that, what made you realize that was the case for you in a situation?
Oh, it feels like I've had that for so many years of having to let go, past
Mm-hmm.
8 or 9 years, especially through COVID, of
Mm-hmm.
people. It got a very extreme judgment, and but honestly, I'll take it back. The first and the last person who taught me how to put them on a farther circle and love them where they are, even though uh, it was my father, who was
Mm-hmm.
incredibly abusive on every level, but also had a good side. And I decided very early, at a very early age, that I was not going to drag this around. And I put him out there, and I told him, I said, I wrote him a letter and said, because of what's happened in our childhood, I can't pretend that you're in my inner circle, but I'm very grateful for that you gave me this and this and this. And so we were estranged for many years. My mother would always say, are you sure you want to do that? Because someday he's going to die. Will you have any regrets that you didn't reach out to him? But no, I don't hate him. I don't have any animosity. I, Hi, thanks for all these great things. And right before he died, he called me. And the first thing he said was, I was surprised I didn't have his number. I just answered. He said, Barb, I bought your book about Albert Einstein. And I just want to say, I don't fully understand it, but I think you're really onto something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first support that I got from my family. My sister used to edit my transcripts, but nobody ever read it and wanted to talk about my work.
Yeah.
So I was able to have a last conversation. And when he passed, I talked to the dead. So we've been tracking, and I've been watching my mother pass, and I'm watching them. But in any case, it, it's for us. It's for
Yeah.
us to detach, not to try to make sure that he gets whatever's coming to him, or his karma is gonna. It's so we're not attached to them.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that example because that's what I kind of told my brother. I was just like, Do you have peace?" I mean, let's be honest, death is around the corner for so many people nowadays that you really have to ask yourself, do you have peace of mind? If our father were to die, would you have peace of mind? Or would you go into this hysterical moment of like, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? You know what I mean? Are you going to allow that grief to burden you because you didn't have that peace? And I agree with you. I have that peace. If my father were to die today, I'll be okay. I will have that peace. And I told him, "Oh, when you die, just come see me and we'll have a conversation." You know what I mean?
Exactly,
We'll
exactly.
have the last conversation and then I'll pass you on along your way. But at the end of the day, I had to do that with my father as well. He's not the best human being in the world, but he's not the worst either. He's just has his own hangups, his own demons that he has to deal with. And unfortunately, they're winning. So I have to allow him to be him in his own way. And I'm at peace with that because at the end of the day, I know that I'm okay, I am safe, and when he does die, I would obviously cry for him, but I'm not going to like, oh, my life is over. You know what I mean? Like I have all these regrets. Like no, there is no regrets because I spoken my pain to him. I spoken my forgiveness to him. I spoken all my concerns to him. And if he's actually received them and understood them or not, that's not on me because it's already out of me. You know what I mean? That's on him now.
Exactly.
The ball's in his court. So I absolutely agree is that sometimes we have to give ourselves that peace of mind. And it's like if there's anybody out there that you feel that that uncomfortableness, then that means that peace isn't there yet. You know what I mean? Like you really have to confront and be completely honest, like open it up, open that Pandora box and really figure out what is that lingering, that unforgiveness, because that unforgiveness can really hinder you in the long run where you don't even realize where it's coming from. And then you don't even realize where it's associated from. But when you figure those things out, you get the understanding, you get the association, you get where it's tied to. And then you can finally be like, huh, I'm at peace. And that's the reason why people can literally be unoffendable because they don't hold anything against anyone and they have truly practiced forgiveness in their heart. And that's what I told my mom. I'm like, I'm just trying to be unoffendable, where there's nothing lingering in my heart. And if there's something lingering in your heart, well, then share it. Be honest, be open. Because when you die, you are going to be dealing with that. Wherever you're going, you're going to have to confront that moment. So it's like you have to be at peace. And I don't think a lot of people understand that concept is that being at peace, having that forgiveness is not for anybody else. It's really for yourself. So instead of taking that poison and hurting yourself, you are finally drinking that water and feeling that crunch. You know what I mean? Finally, like feeling that thirst that's like, oh, that, you know what I mean? Is no, you no longer have that thirst anymore. So it really is something amazing because our conscious mind works with that our subconscious, you know what I mean, constantly. And it's trying to tell us these things. So the fact that you were able to have that moment with your dad and have that peace, that is truly beautiful because it's a lot of things that people really won't ever experience. But at least you know that when you it's time for you to pass and for you to cross that bridge, you will have this freeing feeling of there's nothing holding me back. And it's like you have to really ask yourself, is there anything else holding you back? You know what I mean? Those are the real questions. Ah,
Yeah.
Barbara, I am really enjoying this conversation. I feel like I keep talking to you for
I
hours
know,
on
I
end,
know.
but time is catching up to us. So what can be some lasting words you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Well, I want to invite people to do the conflict revolution. This is the process we teach to do all this. Conflict Revolution Challenge. It's on my website. It's free. It's barbarawith.com. And you can download the process that we've all been talking about today. And also, I have a 12-week journal if you want to take the challenge and do it and see the really revolutionary manifestations that we create once we find this inner peace on this kind
Mm,
of microscopic level.
mm,
And also I want to offer you and your listeners, if they're interested in a reading with me, to get a half hour reading, and I'll give you a full hour, sort of my half price offer. But also, I want to end with just I hope people don't underestimate how important doing our personal work is to the microcosm as well. You know, the world is so chaotic right now, and if we look
mm-hmm.
outside ourselves and judge things by that, then we feel even more distress. But if we go inside and take care of our own domain, then we have a big impact on our families, on our relationships, on what we manifest, and consequently it builds out into the greater whole of the microcosm. So
Yeah, exactly. It
do
changes
your work.
minds. Exactly. It changes minds, it changes perspective, and it all starts with you because it's like once I started working on myself, other people around me in my inner circle was like, this is not something that she just talks about. This is truly something that she embodies. Like, this is really who she is. This isn't just all talk. This is really who she is. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't have is that integrity that comes with being honorable with what's really going on. And like, if I say I forgive you, then act like it. You know what I mean? Act like you forgive that person. Act like it's already a done message. You know what I mean? Like it's a done deal. It's already been done. So it really is interesting to really have people really think about their actions, their thoughts, their past. You know what I mean? Their pain, their beauty, their everything that makes them who they are as an individual, and really step into all that they're meant to be because you won't never know what you're meant to be until you finally let go of who you think you need to be. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if anybody who's listening and who wants to take advantage of all of Barbara's offers, I have access to her link in the description. If you're listening audio on YouTube, you'll be able to find it, quick access. You don't have to rewind it, pause it, and try to write it down or type it in. Don't worry, I have the link there. All you got to do is click on it, and boom, you find access to all the great content that she has to offer the world. So much, yes, the journal that she was talking about, the classes, the readings. Oh my goodness, so many great content. The books. Oh, she has so many great books, ladies and gentlemen, just so that you can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.